As a property investor, you can either choose to invest where you live or invest further afield where you might find better deals. Many new property investors really struggle with this in terms of trying to determine which is the right location for them. Even those experienced property investors sometimes will flitter between the two. In this video, I'm going to give you the advantages and disadvantages of each to help you find the right location that works for your property investing journey. If you're watching my videos for the first time, my name is Saj Hussain, and on this channel, I share with you my 15 years of property investing experience to ultimately help you get further faster in your own property investing journey. When it comes to investing in property, sometimes people think about investing for cash flow, monthly profit. Others will think about long-term capital growth. And sometimes people divide this up between a north-south divide when they talk about gold mine investing areas, i.e. which is the best place, that sweet spot that they can invest in. People sometimes attribute the north to be where the properties are that give you the best yields and the best monthly cash flow profit, and down south where you get the much better long-term capital growth. So for example, if you think of north, Newcastle, places like that, you can get really good rental yields in places like that. And down in London, you see prices just gone through the roof over the last 15, 20 years in terms of what they were then. However, before you can determine which is the right location for you, is it going to be where you live in the town or city that you live, or are you going to travel 50, 100, 200 miles away to invest in property to be able to get where you want? First place to start is ultimately understanding what is it that you're trying to achieve and why is it you're investing in property? What's the outcome you're looking to get? Is it the income, the cash flow you're trying to achieve every month, or is it that longer term capital growth? I tend to think about this from a business point of view of supplying services or products. Who is my end customer? Who's going to be buying those products and services for me? So when we're talking about property, we've got to think about who is it that's going to be living in that property in terms of a tenant, if you're going to be renting it out, or who you're going to ultimately sell that property on to. What's the profile of the kind of person that's going to buy what you're creating if you're flipping properties on? This will really then help determine what type of investment properties you are looking for in order to find the best location. Let's now look at the advantages and the disadvantages of investing in your own town versus that much further away. When it comes to investing much further afield, one of the core advantages, you can take the strategy to the area. What I mean by that is when you come to property investing, there's many different ways to make money. There's so many different strategies you can use, but not all strategies work in all locations all the time. What that means is that the property market evolves, it changes, and at different times, different strategies will work really well. So for example, if I'm looking for 25% below market value deals and I'm off in London trying to find those deals right now, I'm probably going to struggle to make that strategy work. So this is where you've got to think about, is it the right strategy for the right place at that right time within the property cycle? Some people will look at what resources they've got available to them before they make the decision in terms of where to invest. So how much time you have, how much money you have, what experience you have, what strategy you might be keen on, what other contacts, connections you might have before you make a decision in terms of location. Other times, people have already made the decision that this is the strategy I want. They're adamant that's what they want to follow. For example, it might be rent to service accommodation, and that's the thing they want to do. Now you need to find the location that that's going to work in, and it may not necessarily work in your hometown. So the advantage of taking a strategy to a location is you can pick the strategy you want to use, and now you need to just really find the location where that's going to work. And that might be much further away from where you live. And when we talk about investing further afield, that doesn't necessarily have to be hundreds and hundreds of miles away. So for example, with 1 hour of traveling, you can cover quite a lot of miles when you talk about traveling to the other side of the country. I remember a number of times when I visited London, it can take an hour just to get to one part of London to another. So it just really depends where you are. Now, when we talk about the distance, it says it doesn't need to be hundreds of miles away. You know, it could only be maybe an hour from where you live, and that could be a completely different location with different opportunities are presented there. So what's the disadvantages when it comes to investing further afield? Well, one of the main ones is really a lack of local area knowledge. So that means when you're there, you may not necessarily know the area that well. And yes, you can learn that, you can swat up on that, and you can understand it, but you've got that uphill struggle of trying to understand and learn that area. Most people, if we've been born in a particular town or city and we've grown up all our life there, it means we generally have a good understanding of our local environment. But when you're going to, say, the other side of the country, you've got to learn what's going on in that town, where might be the best place, where might be certain things happening that you want to stay away from that might have a negative impact on your property business. And doing due diligence these days is really not that difficult. You can do it quite easily, particularly with all the online tools that are available to us at our fingertips. And if you want to learn more about doing due diligence on property locations, and if enough people ask, I'll do a video specifically, just pop it in the comment section below that you want a video on due diligence of locations, and then we can put something together for you to help you with that. The other thing you'll also need to do is build up local contacts and connections. So you'll need new tradespeople and local architects, other skilled property professionals that you might be working with. And really you need to build up all that team, your power team if you like, to be able to help you in that location. Now, if you're based, say, I'm in Birmingham and I'm looking to invest in Liverpool, I'm not going to be traveling to Liverpool every day to do that because you're investing remotely. You've got to think about the skills involved in managing people on a remote basis. Now, you and I could be having a conversation, we'd be sitting face to face, we could be having a cup of tea, for example, and then, those conversations we have are going to be very different than if it's just a phone call or even if it's like a video call. It's just not the same thing. And although a lot of people have been doing video calls recently, not everybody's still comfortable with doing a call on video. So what you're doing, you're limiting your senses in how you can communicate and connect with people that are really going to be integral on a key part of your business, i.e. the team members that help you deliver what you want in that area. I remember a few years ago speaking to somebody who had chosen a northern town to go and invest with. Just to be clear, I haven't got an issue with any northern towns. I think it's just important you're doing your due diligence wherever it is you're choosing to invest. But one of the challenges he was choosing to do HMOs in a town where there was only one agent that was managing HMOs. And my concern that I had for him at the time was, hey, look, what if the relationship breaks down with that individual letting agent? Then who are you going to turn to manage the property? It's not as if you're going to say, right, I'm going to roll up my sleeve and do this myself, because you are literally at the other side of the country. It's too far from where you live in order to be able to manage it. So you need to de-risk it by having more than one person that you are dependent on. So if you've got restrictions like that, where really there's only one of a certain type of provider, you're really increasing the risks that you have, and you have to manage that relationship very carefully because you really don't want it to break down because you don't have an alternative to be able to turn to. And unfortunately, if your provider knows you haven't got anybody to turn to, they don't necessarily always deliver the best possible service for you. Ultimately, when we talk about the disadvantages of investing further afield, most of it comes down to the complete reliance you have on other people, and your ability to be able to manage those and pick the right people in the first place is going to be key in making this work. Hey, let me share something with you. Recently, I was looking at my YouTube statistics in all the content that we do and the content we put out on YouTube, and I saw something really interesting, and that's the vast majority of people that watch my YouTube videos don't subscribe to the channel. It's crazy, right? I can't understand why that's the case. And what I want to do is try and change that, but I need your help to do that. So if you're enjoying this content, all I want to do is ask you to click on that subscribe button and also click on the notification bell. And all that means is that it will help me get these videos out to more people, so YouTube shows it to more people, and also you get notified when I'm releasing great videos just like this. And ultimately it means that everybody will be in a much more happier world and will be in utopia. So thank you so much. Let's get back to the video. Let's now look at the advantages of investing locally where you live, in the area that you live, the town, village or city that you're in. Now you have to ultimately, as I said earlier, think about who it is that's going to be in the property, what strategy you're following, so you can understand what kind of demand is going to be there. But one of the major advantages that you're going to have is you're going to have some understanding of the locality, the area, which also then means you probably know people in the area. That's easier for you to build your network. Now you may not have tradespeople right now and builders and other people that you're going to be able to work with. You don't know which letting agent to use. However, you will know people in the area that you can turn to, ask them. They might know somebody. So you can see it becomes much easier to build those contacts and connections. And of course, if you're somebody that's more of a hands-on person and you're quite happy rolling up your sleeves and getting involved, then it's so much easier if it's literally down the road or 15 minutes away or 20 minutes away versus 2 hours drive to the other side of the country to do a viewing and come back in 2 hours. So in a day, the only thing you've done is done one viewing. It doesn't make sense, it doesn't work. So the advantage being that you can jump in if you need to. If somebody lets you down, you can take over, you can step in and get somebody else to deal with that. Sometimes one of the key drivers in determining where to invest is how much time that you've got. So if somebody's really busy, they're working full time, they've got a limited amount of time in terms of getting involved in property. Personally, I think if you're investing locally, you've got that advantage that it means you've at least got some local knowledge. But I often hear this from people that are investing in, that live in London, for example. They talk about, well, I can't really make it work in London. I have to invest further afield. I haven't really got a lot of time. So it's really about how you're going to build those teams. However, if you are investing locally, you've got the advantages of the local networking meetings, the business ones, the property ones. You can nip over there, meet people there, get some introductions, and to be able to build your network and team faster. If it's on the other side of the country after work, it's not always practical then to be driving 2 hours to go to a network meeting and then get back like 1 o'clock in the morning in order to get to work the next day as well. Finally, let's now look at some of the disadvantages of investing locally. As I was talking about earlier, getting the right strategy for the location at the right time is quite important. But if you're investing locally, you're actually limited to whatever strategy is going to work there. So for example, earlier I mentioned if you're in London and you're looking for 25% below market value property, you're really going to struggle to find property like that. So you're actually limited in terms of what you're going to be able to do. You haven't got the free reign of picking which strategies are the ones that you're going to use. You are limited to what already works in that particular area, and they're the only ones that are available to you. You might live in a really nice area where a lot of people would like to live. However, it may not necessarily work for an investment property. So that's another challenge that you might have in terms of investing in your area. Other times it may be you live in a place where actually it's really not very the nicest place at all to live, and then by investing in there you're going to probably struggle with the type of tenants you're going to have and the challenge you have in terms of flipping property in those areas or managing property in those areas. Because you're limited to the type of strategies that work in that area, it may be an uphill learning curve in terms of learning new methods on how to do things or trying to understand new strategies. And sometimes people don't resonate with certain strategies so well. So for instance, it might be you're in an area where there's a lot of student HMOs, or you're in an area where holiday lets work really well for service accommodation. So you've got to make the decision that you're going to do those strategies, whether you like them or not, because they're the only ones that work in that area. Ultimately, the challenge is you may still be relying on other people to get things done for you because of time challenges around work. You may be aware that I invest in and around Birmingham, and the way that came about is when I first started investing in property, I was looking for the cheapest possible properties that we could find. And at that time, Birmingham was quite buoyant, the market was quite strong, it was a healthy market. This was pre-market crash and the credit crunch time, and I started looking at the nearest towns that we could find the cheapest property, and I ended up in Stoke-on-Trent. And that's where I first started to get involved in property and property investing and some of the deals I was looking at, and there's some very cheap property there. Now what that meant was that I was driven by the strategy, so the strategy I was looking for was the cheapest property, and I went to the closest location I could find. But over the years, as I was getting involved in more and more property deals and projects, I started to get closer and closer to where I live. And for a couple of reasons. Well, one, it's just so much easier and convenient when it's nearby. But ultimately, what I tend to do is I work with other people's money. I have investors that invest with me. So I'm just absolutely obsessed with making sure I'm in control of what's going on. And I feel a little bit out of control if it's 200 miles away. I just want to know that if there's an issue, I can get there in 20 minutes, half an hour. And tend to be 40 minutes is our radius anyway from our office in terms of how far we generally prepare to travel for a deal. So that means there's more control going on. We can use our network of people over the years we've built, the local agents and connections and contacts we've got, and the local knowledge is also built and layered over the years. What that means is that, hey, we're on our home ground, we know this area really well. Could we go and do this somewhere else? Yeah, absolutely we could, but we don't really need to because there's just so many opportunities literally on your doorstep. Why would you go hundreds of miles away? That's my personal view. And ultimately, you've got to decide what's the right way for you to choose where's the best place to invest. I regularly get sent deals being offered to me that are around the country. That might be to purchase or might be to partner with somebody on a project. But really what we're looking for is projects that are within 40 minutes of our office, as I said earlier on. And I've got a team of about 24 staff. And really what we want to be able to do is utilize that team with our local knowledge to be able to produce the best possible results. That tends to be the way how I invest. I'd love to know what your criteria is in terms of location and where you invest and why you invest there. Pop it in the comment section below. Remember, I tend to read all the comments and I do my very best to answer all the comments that are there as well. 2 tips for you as a thank you for watching all the way to the end. The first one is if you are investing in property in different locations, then try to build that portfolio in clusters. What I mean is don't have one property in Manchester, one in Doncaster, one in Bradford, one down in Stafford. What to do is have those properties in one place so you can build your local knowledge, your contacts, your expertise, your network, so you can best leverage what you are setting up there. The second tip is think about periphery areas. So when I talked about Stoke-on-Trent earlier on, because I couldn't get things to work in Birmingham because the market was strong, Stoke was the periphery area for me. It was like the next best place that was easier to get to. So if you're in a location which is quite challenging or difficult in terms of price or strategy, think about the next easiest location that you can get to that's not too far for you to have to travel. If you've enjoyed this content, I'm sure you're going to like what we've got lined up next for you over here. But just before you go and do that, make sure you click on my face if you haven't already to subscribe to the channel. It's amazing when I look at the YouTube statistics that shows me that the vast majority of people that watch these videos aren't actually subscribed, but it doesn't cost anything. You just click on that subscribe button and that's all it is. I look forward to seeing you on this video over here.